And I'm just giving. So as we can see here, I've already got NASDAQ up in form of NQ. Just a couple things to to point out here. One, we're kind of hitting that area of resistance. We got all the way up to the 175, which this is kind of invalidating any major bearish counts that exist. And what I will mention is open interest on the options market is heavily bearish right now, which means that the majority is usually wrong, and so I do believe that more than likely we are going to see some higher prices here in the short term. Now, with that, let's just say for a moment that we are hitting this algo target to the upside, which is this 175. First off, what I can't ignore is the fact that this looks like a zigzag. This looks corrective, which leads me to believe we could be entering, potentially an ending move here. One thing that I have done is, taken the equity that I have in things such as SPY and the Qs, and I've cashed out of those. So I'm now sitting more in cash than I have been. Now, of course, I did enter a bearish play, and this was right over here in this general area, the 21st, 22nd of October. Currently, that's not working out really well for me, but luckily, that's not the only position that I'm in, and I was actually able to offset that with some bond plays. So with that, how much higher are we going to be going? Let me just clean this up a little bit, and just to let anybody know here, if you haven't seen any of my analysis in the past, just to point out that basically everything that I do is live, and I hardly do anything, prepared ahead of time. What I'm going to do over here on to the right, I'm going to focus on this pivot point up here to the top and this pivot point down here on the bottom. I'm going to just measure that, and what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to get a target to the upside, and it's basically going to be based off of the 1382. And that's all the way up here at about 16,264. That lines up pretty well with this 16,324, and of course the major upside target, which is 16,455. I really didn't expect us to get up that high this soon, and I'm going to kind of remove this for the moment. And what I'm looking at is from down here, if this is going to be a 1 and a 2, then we should be finishing this 3, going down for the 4. But again, I'm not looking for this to go super low, and then we go up for the 5, right? So something along these lines is more than likely what NASDAQ is going to do. I do think that next week in particular is really just going to kind of move sideways. And the reason why I say that is if we take a look at our indicator here, the indicator that we pay attention to the majority of the time, the price has been creeping up, but this 12-hour has been slowly moving downward. And we're seeing that we're finding some support there at about the 75. And let me just pull this up here so we can see this. We got as low as about 75, and it does look like it's starting to curl up, and rightfully so, because we have seen, we've seen the price move up, and we're currently, at an all-time high on NASDAQ right now. But I would say that as we get closer to the end of the day, and again, it's about 1:15, we only have a couple more hours left in the day, I would say there probably is going to be a thrust move to the upside near the end of the day. But, that's not something that I'd bet any money on. But as of, for next week, I do think that we're probably going to see a little bit of a pullback. I do think that's going to happen, probably find ourselves all the way back down here at about, maybe 15.4. We'll kind of take it from there, see how things go. But from there, I am looking for prices to rebound and move all the way up to, 16.2 to 16.4, somewhere in that range. That's where I'm looking for that to complete before we move down. What that would set us up for is a potential for an expanded flat. And if we do get an expanded flat, that means we've got this move down, the move up, and then we'd be projecting ourselves probably to come back down here about 15,000. That's going to be after the move up to 16.2 to 16.4, as I mentioned, and then we go from there. Now let's take a look at the S&P. On the S&P, of course, again, also moving up to new highs. Let me just take a look at SPY really quick. So I cashed out at, I think, 459, just right at that 459 area. We're already starting to see some stagnation. But, the weekly on SPY looks okay. The daily, it really doesn't look all that great. The hourly and the 3-hour, they're all getting into that area of overbought. And again, we're starting to see more signs of bearish divergence, but very similar to the S&P, or sorry, very similar to NASDAQ. Let's just measure this here for just a moment. So we're going to take our trend-based fib extension tool, got this pivot low, the pivot high, and then we have the pullback. So let's put the 175 on here because I think that's pretty. Apparently I don't have 175, 1750. Let's throw that on there. See where we're at, and we're really hitting it right now. We're hitting the 175 right now. So again, if this is the 1, the 2, and we hit the 3 just now, right? We hit that 175 perfectly. So that would have been a really good sell. If we're going to consolidate here, don't know how far down we're going to go, right? All I can say is we're showing some signs of bearish divergence on both the hourly and the 3-hour time frame potentially. The 3 hours still needs some time to play out, but going down here for the 4 and then making ourselves get up to those new highs for wave 5, which would be all the way up at about 475. So that's going to be right up here. Again, about 475 is where that would be landing if we're going to stay true to our algo targets. Downside target on the S&P, let's just go ahead and just look at this. Again, I'm going to measure all of wave 3, and I'm counting this as a wave 3 to show that, we may be having a high on wave 3 that is completed. If that's the case, I'm looking for a move back down here to 450. Worst case scenario, a move back down here to 448. That would still be okay, and that would lean to higher prices, at least 465. More than likely, 470 to 475 is where this is eventually going to land before things end. So that's my idea on the S&P. So I'm going to take a look at a few different stocks, and again, I asked our members to post these. Most of these I haven't looked at before pulling up the chart, so there may be some old artifacts on the chart. I'm going to take a look at those and see what we've got. I'm going to start with American Airlines. I actually think American Airlines is probably a decent buy in these general areas. I kind of expected American Airlines to go all the way up here to, let me just kind of zoom out. I kind of expected it to go higher, above $26, $27. Obviously, that didn't happen. You can see we've got a trade from all the way back here at the very beginning of the year that worked out pretty well. But I would kind of expect American Airlines to rebound here. I do think that there's probably going to be an increase in air travel as we get closer to the holidays. And you want to get in on that action before it actually happens. Is there a good trade to take here? I actually think there probably is. I would be looking to get into a trade down here below $19, probably closer to, maybe $18.50 to $18.75. But, you have easy risk management right here at about $18.27. Right there in that area, if it crosses that level, well, then you know that there's probably something else going on, and your trade is probably not going to be all that great. As far as an upside target, if I had to put something on here, I would say that there probably is taking that pivot low up here to this pivot high, trying to get as close as we can, and again, trying to see if we can get maybe one more low out of here. I'd take this trade up to about, 26.50, somewhere in that general area. Of course, we've got a major upside target here at about 31.40. Would I bet on that? No, I actually wouldn't. Again, the price has been going down, but the weekly is starting to, show signs of weakness, but it has been kind of creeping up, even though we've had this, this channel that we've just been kind of sitting in for the better part of October. Really, it's been falling ever since the beginning of October, and so yeah, it's tough to make a decision on where things are going to go. But again, I do think we're going to get a raid of these lows here, and so from there, below $18, I would look, or sorry, below $19, I'd be looking for a move down here to about $18.80, and then an easy trade. Get in at $18.80 and stop loss, at about 18.25, and there you go. That's a decent trade setup, if I'm being honest. So it's something that I would take. Let's take a look at ARK. I'm bullish on ARK going out to say the end of next year. Usually when you see chart formations like this, I know my machine is a little slow here. When you see chart formations like this where it drops down and then it recovers completely, that is a very bullish sign. When that happened, we had the 1 hour, the 3 hour, and the 12 hour all and oversold at the exact same time. And of course, the weekly moves a lot slower. Weekly wasn't in a great place at the time, but our major indicators showed, yeah, it's looking pretty good. And really, the weekly was below 50. So that's a nice area to be taking a trade, and getting in down here in the low 100s, below 110, that would have been a really great place to be buying. And now we're sitting up here at 122. Would I buy here? No, I actually wouldn't. I've got some old charts here, so let me just pull this up. That bearish wedge already completed, right? We have 5, 3, and then this has already completed. We hit a target down here. It worked out really well. But now, of course, we've got a nice impulse, a 1, 2. Where do I think ARK can go from here? Again, dominant pivot low, dominant pivot high. Let's get the pullback and see where our upside targets are going to be. At least 145. At least 145, but I'm looking personally for a move up above 200. I'm looking for a move up here to about 237. That's going to be where I'm looking at. And again, this is going into next year, right? Don't think it's going to happen very quickly, but just taking a look at this, we're breaking through some resistance, or at least we're trying to, right? We're consolidating here. The more we consolidate above $120, the more bullish it actually is. The weekly is starting to see some move up, and especially if we can get this daily to reset. Again, the daily being this red wave. If we can get that red wave to reset and stay above this trend line as the days go by, and again, we can go down here to 119, and that would still be okay. It would be good if we can get that. But all in all, ARK looks all right, especially long term. Would I buy here? No. Again, it would have been great to get in below 110, but it is what it is. Because if you get in now, where's your stop loss? Your stop loss is going to be all the way down here at 106. And what kind of a risk to reward is that? You're talking about a potential for a stop loss. It's not very. It's not good for me. Let's take a look at Apple. I think Apple is suffering because they are having supply chain issues, just like everyone else, right? Everyone's having these issues. With Apple, the price action that we've seen in Apple today, it's down 2.18%. And apologies, my machine is just taking its time. We've got a big gap, and it's going to try and fill that gap, and it might not be able to. To be completely honest, it might not be able to fill that gap. This is a bearish sign for the S&P 500. Because Apple is one of the most heavily weighted assets in the S&P 500. So when you have something that gaps down like this, that is concerning. That's concerning. It's a gap down after earnings when it had a decent surprise on earnings. It had a good reported revenue. It had good earnings per share. Everything looked really good. There is some bearish divergence, and in my opinion, has confirmed because of the drop down. So although it is trying to recover, I would be very cautious with Apple. We got up here to the 786, and then it rejected. So, again, my opinion here, this was an ABC, potentially, and now we're working, come back up here to that 149, 150 level, right? Up here to the 150 level, maybe 150 maybe 150 and 50 cents, right? From there, I would be very cautious, and I'd be looking to short this down here to about 144.8. If you're looking to buy, be careful, because what we could be working on is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait for things to reset. Wait for the daily, the hourly, and the 3 hour to reset. Get all the way down here and oversold before you decide to buy Apple. And if you're going to say, oh, that never happens, well, it does. Because let me just show you some of the times where it has happened in recent times. Look, right here, 1 hour, 3 hour, and 12 hour. This happened in late September. All the way down here, the 1 hour, 3 hour, and the 12 hour. This happened in the beginning of October. So it does happen. It doesn't happen often, these large cap stocks, but it does happen. Especially if you can get the weekly. If this white weekly does start to reset more, and again, it does happen. It happened back here, this reset. Again, this was a great place to be accumulating below 125, right? And just take a look at the indicators, use the indicators to your advantage. But again, if we get down here to this 134 level, if this is the beginning of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we do finish this in a 5-wave move down to finish an ABC correction down here to 134, in my opinion, that's where things would be ripe to buy. But for right now, I'm not really seeing a great trade setup here. In my opinion, this looks bearish. If we can get back up above 153, then we can talk. But for right now, it doesn't look all that great. All right, let's keep on going. I'm going to start by looking at VITL. This is something that, again, one of our members brought up. One thing I don't like is the chart looks very spotty. I talk about this all the time, that the chart that has a lot of space between the candles intraday is not all that great. It just shows a lack of liquidity. They have earnings coming up. I'm on an hourly here. It does look like it's consolidating, to be fair. And was this IPO'd back in the beginning of August? More than likely, it looks like it was. I'm not getting any more data. And the weekly is showing that it does support that it just got listed here back at the beginning of August. We do have some consolidation here. There is a decent trade setup here, to be completely honest. We got a good stop loss right here at about $16. I wouldn't do it right at 16, probably right on the other side of 16. Earnings is going to be coming up on November 9th. This is after the prior earnings, which was on August 10th. Really good surprise on earnings, both in terms of earnings per share and revenue. But it didn't move. It's just continuing to move sideways. So I would expect that, while this would have been a great iron condor to play between 16 and 19, I would expect that probably after this next earnings on November 9th, it probably is going to see a move up. And again, you've got a good trade setup here. If you're taking a look at this at 1673, what's your risk to reward? Well, let's just take a look. You're looking at, about a 4% stop loss. That's not terrible. That's something that I take all the time. Taking a trade with a 4% stop loss isn't bad. I'd be looking to get in probably at 1650 if you could. And that was a price that was available earlier today, I believe, if I'm reading this correctly. No, I take it back. You were able to get in about 1665. It really hasn't moved a whole lot today, actually. Another flush, possible. I don't know if it's going to make it all the way down to 16 and a quarter, but 1650, probably good. Limit your risk. Keep that stop loss. But it really doesn't look that bad. I do kind of like the consolidation down here. These are some of the things that I do look for when I'm taking a trade. Let's take a look at IONQ. Yeah, so with this, would I buy this? No, I would not buy this up here. I don't know if this is a SPAC or it doesn't look like it is based on the price action. If you got in this, of course, below $10, I would say absolutely stay in. You've got a good buy signal that we had here for something even with limited history. You've got a good buy signal that happened down here below $10. It was at about $9.50. That was a great place to buy. You can see that right here. We had a good buy signal. There wasn't enough history to have a daily on this. But yeah, I would say that, if you were able to get in, and I question whether or not there's more history back here that my machine just isn't pulling up. But if you got in below $10, I would say to continue to hold. You've got the daily that's getting up there. Just got to give it some time. I would say next week, be looking to see about possibly taking profit. Again, I don't know where you got in, but this isn't something that I would buy right now just based on the technicals. But if you're already in, I would say it's probably a good thing to continue to hold for at least another week or so. PLBY, I haven't played this in a long time. Actually, we had a decent buy signal back here with the 1 hour, the 3 hour, the 12 hour, and the weekly, all in oversold at the same time. Same thing happened back here. The 1 hour, the 3 hour, the daily, and the weekly, all in oversold at the same time. All of these, even back here, all of these were great buying opportunities. And now we're getting to the point where the weekly is starting to move up. So I think that this is probably going to continue to move up. That's what it looks like to me. It looks like it wants to continue moving up. Target for this, again, dominant pivot low, dominant pivot high. Then we get the pullback. What's the target for this? All right, so, we've got a target up here at about $31. If this does happen to find its way up here to our bullish targets to the upside, you're looking at $35, $36. Right now, all in all, Playboy actually looks okay. I would say that this is probably something good to hold for probably a couple more weeks, just based on this, because the weekly is still continuing to move up. And that means that you're going to have to look at this with a bullish bias. With the weekly moving itself into the neutral zone, out of the bearish control zone, this looks good. This looks good. So I would say this is a good hold. Is this a good entry? No, I don't think it's a good entry. I think it is a good hold for at least a few more weeks. Facebook. I think Facebook is great, especially down here. Look at the weekly on Facebook. Like, yeah, Facebook has had a lot of problems, but Facebook, I think, has a lot of really great things coming its way. The next pullback on Facebook, I really want to buy Facebook below $300, but I'm willing to nibble on the way, because Facebook is one of those things where I want to hold long term. I do want to hold Facebook long term, and earnings wasn't bad. Prior earnings wasn't bad. Earnings for Facebook really hasn't been that bad. Facebook, of course, did have that really, really, really bad day. I think it was probably this day back on October 1st, where it was down for a significant period of time, and it erased a lot off of its market cap. But, we do have a little bit of support if you look at it from this perspective right here. We've got good falling support here. And again, if I can get down here closer to $300, I'm going to take that any day of the week. But, full disclosure, I did buy a little Facebook today. And again, I didn't alert that on the Discord because I've already been talking on the Discord about how much I do like Facebook, and this is a long-term hold for me. It's not something that I plan on holding my usual, week or so. I want to hold this longer term. So that's kind of where I'm at on Facebook. Let's just keep on going. I'm going to take a look at Chegg. I have not looked at this in a long, long time. It's in a nice long-term falling wedge. Wow, this actually looks really good. You've got the weekly that has completely reset. You've got the daily that's down here as well. You've got the 3-hour and the hourly all starting to move back up. So yeah, I would say to, take a stop loss at about $57, but that really doesn't look that bad for a little play. I don't know what's going to happen after earnings, and earnings is going to be on, I think, Tuesday. So you have to be really careful for that because earnings is coming up. If you want to be safe, wait until after earnings, because if it drops, well, that's going to be, it's going to be even better for you. If it does drop after earnings, I think that could work out really, really well. But Chegg actually looks pretty good down here at these levels, especially with that weekly. Let's take a look at Pinterest. I'm not a huge fan of Pinterest, but again, here's another one where you've got, it actually looks really good. Again, I would wait until after earnings next week. I wouldn't make an earnings play on any of these guys, but the daily, the 1 hour, the 3 hour, and the weekly all oversold. It looks really good down here at about $44.50. Honestly, it does. And we haven't seen prices this low, since all the way back here. I don't think it's going to fill this gap at about 25. That would really surprise me if it did. But again, I want to wait until after earnings because as we have seen, it wouldn't surprise me one bit for this to have one single day where it does drop all the way down here and fill that gap. I mean, shoot, if you want to put in a bid at 25.50 and on earnings day and see if that fills, you never know. You really never know when that's going to happen. All right, let's just keep on going here. That one, again, does look good. PayPal. It's hitting a downside target. Actually, it's hitting that today. I had this 1618 down here. So this is probably a good place to be buying PayPal. Down here at about 235, 234, somewhere in that area. I would say this is probably going to stage a rebound. You can see that the weekly, pretty straight down, right? It's a nice slope. Sometimes you see things just kind of like moving sideways, but no, this one was just a straight move down, resetting completely on PayPal. I would say a 232 stop loss is probably good. If it breaks that stop loss, we're probably going to see prices come all the way back down here to about 215. So buying at 235, a stop loss at 232, that's a really great risk to reward. So PayPal looks pretty good down here, actually, with the complete reset that it's taken. Honestly, it's even creating some hidden bullish divergence off of these lows back here. So if we do see a pivot on PayPal, this is a great buy, even though, again, there's earnings. Actually, that date is incorrect. This is showing July 28th of 2021, which obviously has already passed. So anyway, earnings is going to be coming up on PayPal, so be very careful with that. But I think this probably looks okay. Let's see here. Path. UI path. I don't know what this is. I've never heard of it before. But it does... actually, this looks okay. The reason why I say this looks okay is because it looks like we're getting a nice pullback on this. And let's see, are we at the 618? We're close to the 618 right now. This is a great play. I love 618 plays. I would take this up to the negative 236, which is at $57. You've got a good stop loss. Give yourself a reasonable stop loss at about $50. Take the profit at 57.46. That's going to be your upside target right there. You've got the 1 hour, the 3 hour, and the weekly that are setting up pretty good. The daily doesn't look all that great, but everything else looks okay. You've got a nice setup here with a stop loss right on the other side of $50. So this one also looks pretty good. Let's take a look at Snapchat. Snapchat had a pretty nasty day after earnings. And we're starting to see signs that there's going to be, some rebound here. But this is what I'm talking about. When I was talking about some of those other things, let's see here, what was it that we were talking about specifically? If it was Facebook or Playboy, one of those coming up, you just don't know what's going to happen. And this huge drop after earnings. How far did this guy drop? It was something like 20%. Yeah, it dropped 22% that day after earnings. And you can't expect it, so you have to be careful for things like this. But now that this time has passed, we're starting to see, and I bet we will see, some support at the $50 price point. We've got the hourly starting to come down. The weekly is heavily bearish right now. It's wide open, moving down. So be careful with that. But Snapchat is one of those that has a wide range of use by both millennials. You've got the older crowd that's using Snapchat. Even the younger crowd is using Snapchat right now pretty heavily. So I think it's probably a good buy and hold even after this big drop. I'm willing to bet that it'll probably recover completely over the next year. Now, if that's not your thing, that's fine. But still, to recover completely, that's 40 to 43%. That's outpacing the S&P 500. Pretty well on average, right? The average return on the S&P 500 really isn't all that great. The last year has been, but we also had the recovery after the 2020 crash. So I think this looks good. Robinhood, what does Robinhood look like? Again, a big drop after earnings. Earnings did not, weren't all that great. But to be fair, Robinhood is a fairly new asset. We're down here at the lows from where it opened. So I would say that probably, a decent risk here at about 33 and a quarter. And we're currently here at about $35. Can you get lower than that? I bet it will. Be very careful with the stop loss at 33 and a quarter because it probably will try and come back down here and test these levels. So if anything, I'd actually probably put a buy here 33 and a quarter and put a stop loss at about $30 and kind of go from there. So give yourself I guess that's probably 10%, so maybe 31.50 or so. Give yourself a nice stop loss, but something that's not going to break the bank if it goes against you. And you absolutely have to have a stop loss. So let's move on to the last stock, Mgi Moneygram. Moneygram falling significantly today on good earnings. We have a nice positive earnings per share, but we have negative reported revenue. So that's more than likely why this is starting to move down. But again, you've got the 1 hour, the 3 hour, the 12 hour, and the weekly. And I guess I shouldn't say the 12 hour. What I mean is the 1 hour, the 3 hour, the daily, and the weekly, all in oversold at the same time. Moneygram, currently a stock that is valued at $5.99. I think that this has the potential to double over the next year. All it has to do is get itself back up here to new all-time highs. We're currently at a good level of support. I'm not going to speculate on anything crypto related. I think most of that speculation is a sham, so just ignore that. But we are at a level of support here. So, you can easily, take some of these pivots as a stop loss. So for instance, this level right here, a good area for a stop loss. This level right here, good area for a stop loss. Do you want to take it all the way down to $5? That's a pretty significant drop. But now that we've seen this pull back so far, I think it's good to start looking at areas for potential returns that are going to be pretty decent. We had positive earnings, negative earnings, negative earnings. Now we're into a positive earnings territory. I don't know a whole lot about the sector, so I'm not going to speculate too much about holiday spending and holiday wiring, whatever that may be. I do believe that, MoneyGram in particular, when it comes to, sending cash via wire using some of these tools, I think it is going to start to become a little more obsolete over time. With that, I would say that it's still a pretty decent price point below $6. Keep a good stop loss, but again, don't break the bank. Personally, I don't like stocks that are below $10, but the trade setup here isn't all that bad. Do I think it's probably going to come back down here to 575, maybe 570? Yeah, I do think it probably will. But again, that for me would be a good buying opportunity. All right, guys. That is, you want me to take a look at NEO? I will take a look at NEO. Yes, let me take a look at that. That's, again, one that I haven't looked at in a while. It's currently, it doesn't look terrible. This trade ended up not working out. It went about halfway to our target, but it got rejected here. So let me just go ahead and remove this guy and remove here. Looking at this, 33, we had the weekly. This is a really great example right here. You had the 1 hour, the 3 hour, the daily, and the weekly, all in oversold at the same time. And that was literally right down here, darn near the very, very bottom at 33.54. And how far up have we gone since then? 17, almost 18%. And at one point it was over 18%. Is there a good trade here? No, there's not. If anything, I think it's probably going to do a little bit of a pullback. Let's just go ahead and see how far back this potentially is going to go. Probably down here to about 36.50. That would make a whole lot of sense. Again, looking left, let me just put a line here on that level. We've got support here. We have lots of resistance here. So there's lots of price agreement that this is a support and resistance level. So if it comes back down here to 36.50, all these guys that sold at 36.50 are going to want to get back in. We have a gap at 36.50. We've got all this resistance at 36.50. And again, when you're talking about resistance, these are people that were selling. People that bought up here, and when the price fell, we were selling at 36.50, 36.50, 36.50. Now the price gapped up, so all these people that bought here and sold here are going to want to get back in at that same price that they sold at if they can. So that's where this support is going to be coming from. We'll have to take it, one day at a time. The weekly looks good. The daily looks like it's going to pull back. And more than likely, it's probably going to find itself back down there at about 36.50, and then we'll kind of go from there. Let's see here, Alan. I don't understand the statement. It's not on the recording, so maybe we can touch base on that on the Discord. But I'm going to go ahead and end the video now. We've been going here for 33 minutes. Time flies. If this video did help in any way, shape, or form, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you need access to our Discord, you can get access to our Discord by simply going to BitDoctor.org. All of the information to access the Discord is going to be on that website. And of course, wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a good day, a good night, and a good evening. Take care, everyone.